Excellent. Before we kick off, as we're the penultimate session here today, I want to just get a quick round of applause for all the Brand Innovators team that's been killing it all weekend. It's not easy to pull this off for 4 straight days, and it's been amazing. The content's been fantastic, so congrats to the team. I'm Alex at System One. I'll explain System One a bit later in the session. I'm excited to be here. Terry and Matt are joining me. I'll let you guys quickly speak a little bit to yourselves, and then we'll jump into really recommendations and guidance on how to take some creative risks and the return and reward that can be associated with creative risk-taking. So, Matt, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I'm Matt Johnson. I'm one of the co-founders of HAYMAKER, and I'm our Chief Strategy Officer as well.
I'm Terry Minogue. I oversee creative marketing for Paramount Streaming, which is Paramount Plus and Pluto TV, our fast streaming service.
We have fans.
Got some ringers in the crowd.
Can we see the slides? Abby, do we have those up? 1 second, she's working on it.
Multimedia today. We're going to have content.
Yeah, visual aids are good. We want to look at an ad. This is going to be almost kind of a case study in creative risk taking and how it pays off. This session is called Calculated Chaos: The Strategy Behind Taking Creative Risks. HAYMAKER is one of the best in the business. Do you want to, while we wait for the slides, you want to just quickly talk about HAYMAKER and what makes you guys unique and different?
Yeah, we're an independent, minority-owned advertising agency located in Los Angeles, California. We've been in business for about 8 years, and we have a little bit of a different founding. I'm a strategist by trade, and my creative partner, the two of us met at 72 and Sunny now 8 years ago. The agency was started 8 years ago. And it's really built off of our relationship. More often than not, strategy and creative are really siloed in agencies or even in companies. And we had such a really strong working relationship combining the two, both concepting on the strategy front and pulling creative all the way up in the front of that process, as well as keeping strategy all the way through the creative process, even having strategists on production. This is some of our favorite work that we've ever made. The stuff we're going to get to hopefully share with you guys today. Yeah, and it's truly a byproduct of both strategic and creative thinking coming together at the same table. But yeah, if that seems odd, if you go to the next slide.
Yeah, there's a retitled presentation.
Or another way to put it would be how to take creative risks without it blowing up in your face and losing your job and facing shame and ridicule in the press and LinkedIn. Just one.
That was the working title.
That was the working title. But yeah, it's like, how do you do this, right? It's very, very scary to take creative risks in the modern economy of the attention economy. But it's almost even more so necessary. If you go to the next slide.
There's a lot of people watching, and the fear of failure is real.
Yeah.
But again, without risk, there can be no reward.
Yeah, it's true. And so I think it would be cool if you want to tee up the spot a little bit. We're going to show you our work, which premiered on the Super Bowl, not last year, but the year prior. And you'll get to understand all of the creative risk that went into it and the calculations that we put into it before it aired.
So before we get into the making of this and the risk-taking and everything that went on behind the scenes, obviously being Super Bowl, the stakes are quite high.
Pretty high, yeah, I would say. It's one of the most anxiety-provoking moments you can have as a creative person, and I imagine as a brand person. We're going to get into some tips that I think can really be applied to any creative opportunity that you might face. But the thing that I want everybody to remember is that it's not always just pure risk. It's how do you de-risk an idea, and you do that through strategy, information, inputs. There's a lot of calculation that goes into that before we're just selling an idea and hoping that people will take a risk alongside with us. The first one is this, which is predictability only guarantees that you'll be ignored. So the risk is not necessarily failing. The risk is being absent and completely bypassed and not having any mark out in the world of commerce. If people don't pay attention, you've really wasted quite a bit of your money. So it's almost as if the risk is not taking a risk. And I think we've all seen ads that just feel like they fly right by. They're not landing with us in a moment of truth, a moment of connection. They have really no anchor point whatsoever. And so that's really the first tip I can give to you is like, don't worry about the risk. Try to think about, everything that can happen if you don't take a risk. And then it's like, great, well, how do you get to a risk and feel good about it? The next one, you should go back one. Sorry, just really quick.
And I was going to say, Alex, the other day we were talking about people feeling neutral about advertising. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? And that is sort of the number one reaction, which is exactly what we don't want.
It makes for an entirely forgettable ad. And if you're making an entirely forgettable ad and you're spending $8 million for the spot, you're not generating any business impact whatsoever. Paulie from AG1, I think it was maybe Saturday, referred to the auto category, where everybody says the same thing. It's very feature driven. I think he used the words "make me feel something." If anybody was here for that, if you're in the sea of sameness and you're saying the same thing and it's the same approach, everybody's going to immediately forget your ad. You're wasting money and you're not moving the needle. There's no business impact. It's a waste of money. A negative emotion in our measurement is neutrality, not feeling anything at all. Advertising should make people feel something. It should have an emotional impact.
And if you put in predictability into ChatGPT, it makes that really weird, transparent guy at the coffee shop. So that's where that image comes from. The next step, though, is ideas themselves need to play offense to win. So you can't just think about the one, in this case, 60-second spot on the Super Bowl. You've got to look at not avoiding mistakes, but what are the opportunities that I can take advantage of with this idea? Everything that lives outside of the spot itself, the characters. If you look at the potatoes, once we landed on this idea of couch potatoes, our version of playing offense was world building. How can we build a world around these? What are all of the things that the potatoes can do for us in leveraging our content, our differentiation in the marketplace, connecting with different genres that we serve, and also different consumers and what their interests are? I think that's what we mean by playing offense. It's think about all of the potential of the idea and what you've created in the medium itself as well as outside of the medium.
Terry, can you tell us a little bit about how this initial idea was received on the Paramount Pluto TV side? Was there some questioning the initial strategy early on? Was it too risky?
I wouldn't say too risky, but I think a lot of conversations of, to your point, placing a bet this big and exactly what we want to say. So I think we had several ideas that were probably risky, which I think for the Super Bowl, you kind of have to be, right? It's the Super Bowl of advertising. It's very difficult to stand out, especially without celebrity talent. That was one thing we were really proud of last year. All of these brands, including Paramount Plus, just lining up talent, but not having that ended up being, I think, a real strength for us. But absolutely, I think just really the execution, because on the surface it can kind of seem obviously like a silly idea, but to Matt's point about building the world and sweating all the details, it was really when we hired our director Stacey Wall, and he kind of pitched it. We started talking about a documentary, and he pitched it as, I want this to be a love letter to television. And that's when that kind of like really clicked for me, at least, of like, okay, we need to do something that's big, ambitious, and quite silly, but also have an undertone. And of course, the Super Bowl tropes of like the Budweiser commercials, the Tropicana ads. So, playing into a trope that people know from the Super Bowl and then sort of twisting it on its head. But absolutely, I think also, when you're basically telling your audience you are couch potatoes, I think a lot of people could find that offensive. But I think everyone can relate to, no matter how not lazy they are, I think everyone can relate to, just a few hours now and again when you want to veg out.
Yeah, no, and we tested this ad. We'll look at the test results in a second in terms of the emotional response it generated, but it's very relatable. It's a guilty pleasure to just sit on the couch watching television. It's certainly not going to generate any negative emotion on behalf of the viewer. It's funny, humorous, and relatable. And again, people like vegging out every once in a while. But final point before we move on to the next sort of guidance and recommendation is the game is the level of play in the Super Bowl is much higher. You're surrounded by very, very effective creative with a lot of time and energy invested in testing and just bringing out celebrities and just everybody's best ideas. So not only the stakes high in terms of the investment, but the bar is much higher than it would normally be. So I think we have another video to quickly show the follow-up to the original Couch Potatoes.
Yeah, this is just to kind of exemplify what we mean by world building. So as we're presenting the idea, we also presented thoughts of where the potatoes could go, all of the different things that they could do. And on a shoot, someone was like, it'd be great if we got a celebrity into one of the potato costumes. And when you look at Pluto TV's content, there are obviously a lot of celebrities, and there's a lot of content from specific celebrities. And it literally came up of like, well, do you think Gary Sinise would ever want to do this? And he's on CSI New York, and we reached out, and it was an enthusiastic yes, which turned into a spot all about crime and crime dramas that you can watch on the platform.
Crime, murder, gruesome psychological manipulation. I live for it. That's why I love Pluto TV. All the crime shows and Couch Potato could watch.
You learn a lot watching crime shows on Pluto TV.
Like at the first 48 hours of crime, learn that the victim also leads double life.
And I love when they say, I ask the questions around here.
You're not saying it right. It's like this. I ask some questions around here.
What years are these?
Yeah, Pluto TV. Stream now, pay now.
So, yeah. Thank you. What, again, echoing Terry's point about the love letter, it's really leaning into fandom. You know, we're all fans of something. There's a natural truth there. Some people really like crime dramas. And so why not lean into the truth wherever we can find it? To be perfectly candid, it is how you de-risk a creative risk. You have to find the truth that exists within each execution, no matter if it lives on television, digital, wherever it might be.
Yeah, and just congratulations on sticking with the idea and the consistent approach. You don't get the full reach. You need a couple of exposures. You need to get this associated with Pluto TV, and then following up with Gary Sinise. I would imagine there's hopefully more coming, because you've now created what we call a fluent device, a cast of characters or an entity that is associated increasingly with Pluto TV, and you want to leverage that. That's now built up equity that you've created. So that. Yeah.
So, thinking about this presentation and sort of these pillars, these tenets, this is one Matt and I talked about, but, consider all that can go right for 24 hours. I think, as marketers, we all have a lot of notes and thoughts and can come pretty immediately of maybe why something won't work. And that's really, really easy to do. And I think we all get a lot of notes all day about why something can't be done. But when it comes to something as big as this concept, really just considering, take 24 hours, think about all the things that can go right. Think about the social media extensions. Think about the press headlines, and give yourself and your teams the space and the opportunity to think big, not just go directly to why something like this won't work. Think about all of the extensions that can work.
Yeah. And then next is scary moments are a good sign. It really is about pushing into unknown territory. And the more that something is super familiar, the more it's likely to be ignored or received neutrally, to Alex's point. So I'm sure all of us have had experience, whether it's making a post on social or making work for the world to see. Being creative can be really uncomfortable and scary. The discomfort that's associated with a creative act is normal and part of the process. So even though we had this nightmare comp that was put together that did not imbue us with a lot of confidence, we pushed forward and thought, well, let's keep thinking about what could be right and all that can go correctly. And then I think I'll just say it and then you can talk about it. But Terry has a saying that he's presented to us many, many times, which is, it's just the right amount of wrong. And I think when you think about something that's going to break through and really shine, that's obviously the gold star. It's what we're looking for.
Yeah, it is just that balance, right? Of especially now, just trying to break through. At least for our brands, Pluto TV and Paramount Plus. You know, we want people engaged. We want people to be surprised, and so it is that fine line. You know, how do you go right up to that line and maybe not go past it? But I think everyone's kind of craving that. These days, just the last couple of years, and sort of like sort of a correction to maybe political correctness. So anyway,
I like the right amount of wrong.
The right amount of wrong.
Very good. Next slide, please. Truth trumps trends.
Yeah, again, it's another moment about how do we de-risk a risky idea. And this woman is on TikTok really sharing with the world how much she loves being a couch potato. She's not attached to our spot. She's just like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to spend my time. I want to get lost in my shows. And the comments that follow alongside her video are all in support, right? I think that if we're looking at a risk from a creative idea and it's attached only to a trend, the trends can very quickly come and go. But truth, especially emotional truth, it endures. So if you can confidently, and you have to really question yourself, say that it's attached to an emotional truth, an undeniable truth, then that lowers your risk even that much more. So again, it's kind of the calculation of it.
Yeah, it's authenticity, it's relatability. Again, it's honest. Consumers are smart. They're exposed to a lot of advertising. Speak to them as human beings and be authentic. The next recommendation, commit to the bit.
Commit to the bit, but stay open. You know, I think when you take this material really, really seriously, you know, sweat the details. You know, our potato costumes, we ended up teaming up with Legendary, right? Was it Legacy VFX to build the costumes, and they do all the costumes for Star Wars. So, you know, we really invested in the potato costumes, very committed. But I love this slide. You know, when we're shooting, you know, we're out in a field and it started raining, and sort of everyone's instinct is, yeah, let's take a break. You know, we want the look of this campaign to be consistent. The rain's not going to work. Fortunately, you know, for the crew, we have these umbrellas around, these Pluto TV umbrellas. We're just like, we don't want to stop. Let's just keep shooting. You know, the best time to watch TV is in the rain. And so we leaned into that, and, you know, our actors, our potatoes, you know, all really good at improv. And they just had some really, really charming moments that we captured. And then after the fact, we were able to, you know, say, okay, why don't we take this portion of the campaign, these ads, when it's raining, and actually geo-target different locations depending on the weather. And we had really, really good results. So, you know, the point there is like, you know, commit to the bit, but stay open and flexible.
Yeah, I think even in a partnership, staying open is incredibly important. I think often agencies will try to own the idea, you know, tight grip, make sure they don't really leave as much room as they could. And I think the pushes that we got early on in the process from Terry and his team were make the potatoes as lovable as they possibly can be. And that was a really good steer. Then, even as Terry mentioned, on shoot, we'd have some of our actors improv lines. Some of those lines are in the final film. It's really like best idea, best comedy moment, best thinking, best adjustment wins. So if you stay open, again, you're actually de-risking the process as opposed to kind of tight-fisting everything all the way through.
Next recommendation, data, research.
Yeah, it's really like, you know, how do we use data as a confidence booster and not a creativity killer? I think as a strategist, I see data as a weapon. The input that we get is going to help make sure that we're on the pulse and shape the idea. I think it can be misused where if you're looking for permission. And it feels like if you're really looking for permission, then you're not willing to take the risk that is needed. But we've used all kinds of data in order to inform our ideas, and testing is one of the most helpful things that we can do along the process. You're not always able to test, you know, obviously, like you've got to test animatics. Maybe you just test a script. Sometimes we share it. We create our own focus group, digitally try to roll it up as fast as we can. They're all different levels of how you might test an idea. But all in all, with the right amount of data, it is an absolutely humongous confidence booster.
And it can help you commit to the bit. Yeah. If you do early testing and you lock in on something that's clearly working with your target audience, then you can do more of it. And you can get more and more buy-in because you've got research and data to back up that you're heading in the right direction. So we did test this ad. I'm not going to spend too much time on methodology on the next slide, but star rating is long-term business impact. It's 1.0 to 5.9. Spike rating is more short-term business impact. These are predictive metrics. Fluency is simply unaided brand awareness at completion of the ad. We're going to look on the next slide at second by second how this ad impacted consumers emotionally. Really, at the end of the day, you want a lot of green, you want happiness and surprise, you want to keep the white, the neutrality to a minimum, because that means nobody's feeling anything. And then, as you'll see, there's very little negative emotion, and I think we also have some comments from the consumers that were exposed to this in terms of what worked for them. So a lot of green on this face trace. This is all self-reported. We're not doing any facial recognition technology, but I think it was a 4.1 star. The average for that category, streaming, apps, and media, is 2.8. So you were significantly above the average in that category with an exceptional short-term expectation as well in terms of the spike rating. You saw that there was a real big jump in happiness with the laugh that's early in the spot as well, because that gets people, that generates happiness, as do babies and pets and chocolate and alcohol. But really high level of brand recognition as well. So it tested extremely well. In terms of the verbatim that came in on this, I wanted to just highlight surprise, because there was a lot of this was an amazing ad. The creativity was there, super fun. I was so surprised, loved the couch potato angle. So it's one of those things where the risk was taken, but the reward is clearly there, right? It is relatable, it was surprising, and it generated a lot of really positive emotion, much more green than your average US TV ad. And again, you minimize the neutrality, which when you're dealing with an expensive Super Bowl spot, this set the Pluto TV brand up for success. And I think on the next slide, we'll see that it actually really did work for Pluto TV. So this is the reward part of the risk equation.
Yeah, this was just a week after the Super Bowl. As you can see, 17% increase in daily active users. So just a ton of lift coming out. And there's one more slide here with a few more metrics. Obviously, the impressions were insane with over 1 billion. The press write-ups were really remarkable. Our social following grew by 114 times that day, and just kind of record-breaking across the board. So very fortunate.
Yeah, and with the stakes as high as they are with the Super Bowl spot, I mean, that's really fantastic. So we have one parting shot, Matt, in terms of
these were just some like real customer reviews, which this person said, my dad saw the Super Bowl ad, immediately downloaded Pluto TV, and then told all of his friends, or his brother, I think, it's like, it's a focus group of one, but we'll take it. We're building the business here, which it's all about. And then if you go to the next slide, this young woman compared us to Beyonce, which in her praise for the spot, which I'm like, I will take it. That's what you call the goods right there. So yeah, I mean, obviously risk is not worth it unless you get the rewards. And again, the calculation that goes into the risk taking is really what sets you up to make sure that you have the rewards. This is just a personal belief that I have, which I know that there's a lot of creative people in the room, but I got this from a mentor a long time ago, and it's just to remember that only the best of us get criticized. So if you present an idea to a creative director, they're going to criticize it. Then it goes to the client. The client's going to criticize it. Then the client agrees to make it. It's going to go to a director. The director's going to criticize it. Then we actually put it out in the world. The consumers see it. They're going to criticize it. Then, oh my gosh, it's up for an award. The jury's going to criticize it. Then it wins an award. Your peers are going to criticize it because they didn't think it really was worth the award. And all that's to say that, like, if you look at that trajectory, that's the best possible outcome you can have, but it comes with the most criticism. So in thinking about taking a creative risk, I just encourage you, know that comes with it, but it is a small part of it. The rewards on taking a creative risk are much bigger. And you need a partner. It is not an agency coming to a client saying, take a risk. We look at it like we have to be willing to get fired. if it doesn't work. And that's where we put our skin in the game. So ultimately, it's a partnership, and we're really happy when it pays off and does what it's supposed to do.
Awesome.
So I think we're going to make this presentation available. So if anybody's interested or wants to evangelize risk-taking on the creative level, we're happy to help you do that. If we have time for one or two questions.
We have time for one.
Okay.
Anybody question in the audience?
So you'd mentioned that a director came in and sort of clarified some of this vision, but I'm interested in the starting point. How much of this came from the brief? How much of this on the Pluto side, did you say, we know exactly who our people are? Or was it HAYMAKER coming in saying, let's help show you who your truest fans are? Like, what was the interplay there with really sort of nailing down who you were speaking to before all the rest of the creativity came in?
It's a great question. I think we biased, but I think we had a really strong brief.
Agree.
I report to our CMO of streaming, who's also our head of data. So we know a lot about our audiences. So I think coming in had, really high expectations on what we wanted to do, but we really did have a sort of a blank slate in terms of like, do we go after a celebrity? Do we put, the audience on screen? How content forward do we want to be? Because that's a big part of the brand as well, is the quality of the content. So I think we had a nice brief, but it was really, credit to these guys. And you did pitch some other big, crazy ideas, and sort of the honing and the narrowing down to this. A lot of back and forth, but I think once we greenlit it, that's where it just became stronger, because that's where more and more of the iteration was taking place, because we were committed to the concept.
Yeah, I would just add that the evolution of the idea in deck one, it's the concept of couch potatoes is there, but very different tonally, very different look and feel. And I think, again, it goes back to that stay open. It is a team sport. So you need collaborators, and you need to have the confidence to recognize when a collaborator has a fantastic idea and let the idea get shaped with everyone. I think far too often, we maybe in the creative business try to lean in as an expert, and I think we try to look at it like, let's lean in as a learner first, and what other people can contribute to the concept will help make it stronger and sharper.
Guys, thanks for sharing.
Thanks a lot, Alex.
This has been great.
Thanks a lot.
Great panel,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys. Appreciate you hanging on.
Thank you, guys.